I think about is what was our scientific understanding before, like germ theory and things like that. And you know, we look back 400 or 500 years ago and think, oh, people were so backwards. And the thing is, I always say to people is that we are going to be looked at exactly the same in 500 years' time. They're going to go, what were these people doing?
嗨，大家好，我是戴淑萱，我来自英国，欢迎回到我的频道。今天呢，我在英国的 Canterbury 城市，然后我有一个特别来宾，请欢迎 self-proclaimed best teacher in Canterbury, fashion guru, history nerd, and Mick Jagger lookalike, Sam.
Hey. It's just something really special about these ancient buildings. We're so lucky in England to have so many of these types of buildings around. Large cathedrals, historic buildings. I love visiting these places. I just wanted to share that with you. Have you been here before then?
No, I haven't actually.
All right, let's take a look. It's really, really beautiful here. I think you'll really love it. Do you know much about Thomas Becket and what happened here?
Not really, no.
So Thomas Becket was the Archbishop of Canterbury. As you know, one of the most important roles in the church. This is a very powerful person, and in the Middle Ages, he was especially powerful. Thomas Becket was murdered here in 1170 under the orders of King Henry II. This was totally outrageous. The Bible preaches, love thy neighbour, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. To murder somebody in a church, which is supposed to be a holy place, a place to get closer to God, it was unspoken of, unheard of, and really unusual. Even stranger is that after the murder, there were a number of miracles that are said to have happened in this church, and it became an international centre of pilgrimage for so many people. It became a really important place after that point.
So why was Thomas Becket murdered then?
Basically, he had a big dispute with the king at the time. You've got to bear in mind that the church was so powerful at this point in history. There's a whole book in the Bible, in the Old Testament, about the right of kings, the divine right of kings to rule over people. Kings relied on the church to justify their actions. They had a big dispute, a big falling out over political matters, as people in power often do.
So Thomas Becket was maybe a bit too powerful for the king to handle, and some knights in to murder him in his own church.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so obviously all of that happened a long time ago in the past. What do you reckon is the current state of religion in this country? I mean, do you believe in God?
So, yeah, I do. I think that's quite an unusual thing for a young person, though. I mean, there's been quite a lot of stigma attached to the Catholic Church in recent years. Do you think that it's something that appeals to young people as much as it did in the past?
I was actually looking up some stats on YouGov about this, and apparently our generation, so 25 to 39, are the least likely to believe in God. Like over half don't at all, and then slightly younger actually believed in God a bit more. And I was thinking, maybe is that to do with their age, because people are raised in a Christian school, and then maybe it's a bit later in life that you start to not believe so much, because it was definitely like that for me. Like, I went to a Catholic school, but funnily enough, the reason we went to a Catholic school was, I kind of think, nothing to do with the religion. It was because it was a good school. Something about like teaching these values and be kind to your neighbour and so on does actually produce kind of a nice schooling environment. But yeah, we went to church every Sunday, and at the time I didn't realise that my mum was actually trying to get us into this school because she needed a letter from the priest to say that we were actually believers. And then apparently everyone did this. Hardly anyone in the year group actually believed in God. I think I can think of one person in the whole year group. So yeah, what about you? Because I know you went to, was it Protestant school?
Yeah, it was a Church of England, but it was a Protestant. And yeah, that was the same thing. It was, you just went there because it was the best school in the area, basically. My parents don't believe in God or anything like that, and it was just so to have a better education, really.
Yeah.
I started really questioning all that stuff when I was probably about 11 or 12 there.
Questioning it in terms of, do I actually believe it?
Yeah, do I actually believe it? I kind of went through a long period of not being interested in it at all.
Yeah.
And then it came back later on. I'm a big advocate of personal faith, going down and finding your own spiritual path in life. I think is very important. I don't really go to church. I mean, do you ever go to church?
We used to go to church as a family on Christmas Eve every year without fail, and even that's fallen by the wayside recently. So essentially not. I think me and you have had a similar kind of path in that sense, actually, because raised Christian, then as a teenager starting to think, oh, do I really believe this? And then I think we went down the Buddhist path a bit, didn't we?
We both got really interested in Buddhism. Yeah.
Which is kind of a new age thing in this country. It's interesting because you go to Asian countries and it's like that is the serious traditional kind of religion, whereas in the UK that's the kind of open-minded new way of thinking type one, isn't it?
Although I used to live in Brighton and there's so much of that kind of thinking there. It's like tied in with the kind of new age movement, but like also the hippie movement as well.
Yeah.
And you think about all the music and things that went on in the 60s, the kind of mixing up of everything, and the kind of like Eastern influence in music and rock music and all of that stuff.
Yeah, totally. Interestingly, I saw that so British Christians who've said they're Christian actually only, I think it was like 56% believed in God. Isn't that a contradiction? Because isn't that the whole point that you believe in God? But I think often it's kind of for the community aspect.
Yeah, it's more of a lifestyle. I mean, I was going to say, I mean, you brought up Christmas and going to like Christmas Eve services and things like that. For example, like we would do that. Like I said, my parents aren't Christian, but they would love to go because it was a way to get a community together. And also you just get like really beautiful music and all that kind of thing as well. It's not really to do with the belief in God. It's like the sort of paraphernalia I think people enjoy. My experience of it is you kind of get families that are Christian and they kind of pass it on to their children and it goes like that. I don't know if that's the case in other religions around the world. It probably is, isn't it? I wonder whether it's to do with sort of social programming and in a way sort of indoctrination.
But yeah, I guess if people feel like it brings meaning to their life and brings people together and gives them a sense of direction, then I'm all for it, to be honest.
Also, the churches around here do so much for the community, especially like the homeless population. A lot of people come here because in the winter it's so cold. They put them up, you know, throughout the winter if it drops below a certain temperature. And I mean, it's pretty basic, but they feed them and give them somewhere to stay. It's that kind of idea of charity. And if things are like that happening, I'm thinking, well, great, please, we need more of that.
So what's the whole deal between Catholicism and Church of England? Because I went to a Catholic school, you went to a Church of England school, and they're supposedly against each other.
Protestantism was a reaction against the Catholic Church, really. It came from Martin Luther in Germany, and it was a big movement and it spread throughout Europe. That happened in England as well. It was Henry VIII, wasn't it? Like the dissolution of the monasteries, and basically for him it was a way of having more power, I think.
So I guess obviously a big reason why fewer people might now be believing in God is to do with science. What I find funny is that some of the top scientists that you can think of, I don't know, geniuses like Einstein, were religious because they're like, we can't explain this, there's something going on here.
Exactly, and it's a dogma, isn't it? When you go back to the beginning, and a lot of scientists will say that it's all just chance that happened, and that's no more scientific than having a religious view that the world was created, really. There's no more evidence. Is a religion.
Obviously, like science has scientific methods and everything, but in the sense of me and you, average people who know nothing about science, just how much we believe it without maybe checking for ourselves is a little bit of a religious way of doing things, kind of.
Yeah, there's a sort of cult-like mentality around it. One of the really interesting things I think about is what was our scientific understanding before, like germ theory and things like that. And
isn't it?
you know, we look back 400 or 500 years ago and think, oh, people were so backwards. And the thing is, I always say to people is that we are going to be looked at exactly the same in 500 years' time. They're going to go, what were these people doing? You know, like you look at quantum physics, and they're coming out with all these ideas that's actually much closer related to spirituality than we thought, say, 30, 40 years ago in normal scientific thinking.
Yeah, so according to YouGov, a quarter of Britons say they believe in a God, and 4 in 10 don't believe in a God or a higher power.
4 in 10?
Yeah. Is that higher than you'd expect then?
I thought it would probably be more, really.
That don't believe in a God?
Yeah. There's actually quite a lot of people that do believe in a God. I just thought it would be less. So, Susie, do you think religion is dead?
Oh.
Chatting.
I'm chatting like a
Having
big...
a talk.
La, 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 la,
oh,
la,
I've got
la,
something on
ha.
my face.
No.
Go on, fix me up.
Hello.